Mr. Verhofstadt. For the Greens, Mr. Cohn-Bendit.
Monsieur le Président, chers collègues, merci Guy.
Mr. President, colleagues, Guy, thank you. Perhaps we can continue to move in this direction, because I believe if we talk about the 9th of May, we talk about Europe, we talk about all we've achieved, well, then we should also talk about what remains to be achieved, so that the future can indeed belong to the people of Europe. And we shouldn't underestimate what's happening today in these elections. If there is a democratic deficit in Europe, then we should be honest and face that. If the federal Europe that we want is to be really democratic, it needs to be able to respond to the problems, to the fears of our citizens. And when we see these elections taking place, the results in Greece, and the only solution that the central bank has found is to say there is no alternative, you have to stick to what we've decided, then I say to the central bank, be very, very careful. Be careful. Remember European history. Remember the history of Germany. Remember the Treaty of Versailles. When we say to people there's no solution, there's no other solution, then people find solutions, and sometimes these are dreadful solutions, and we have a heavy responsibility to remember history. When someone says in a democracy that there's no alternative, they're wrong. Democracy is always about looking for alternatives, otherwise there's no point being in politics at all. So, one really simple thing I want to say. If we want Greece to vote 2, 3, 4, 5 times until finally they grovel and say, Europe, we're terribly sorry, what do you want? Then what we need is that we open the memorandum again, we talk about it again, we come up with some ideas and put them to the people of Greece. Because if we don't give them anything at all, then the next election will go exactly the way that this one went. And when I say open the referendum again, it doesn't mean they can't have structural reforms. All it means is that it's important that the people of Greece be able to keep up with the pace of reform and aren't strangled, suffocated, starved by what the reforms bring in their wake. And if we can't provide a response, then they'll come up with ultra-fascist, ultra-Nazi, anti-democratic, ultra, and it'll all work against us. And then, of course, you've got the people of France. Everyone knows that I'm more or less on the side of the winner here. But what I can't understand when I hear it from other Europeans, you can't say to the people of France who have just voted after a very tense, close election and say, whether it's Hollande or Sarkozy, it doesn't matter, you've got to do the same thing anyway. Because if that's the case, there's no point having a vote. There's no point having change. There's no point doing anything at all. So if today the people of France, in a majority, not a huge majority, and it's going to be a very difficult situation, but if we need change, then it's up to the whole of Europe to ask how we can change. And if Mr. Monti is listening carefully to what happens in Italy, and we saw the local elections there recently, then a bit of change is needed in Italy too. And surely Mr. Rajoy will realise that Spain will need a bit of change as well. It's obvious that today it's not a question of just saying the same thing over and over again, stability, growth, etc., etc., etc. We need to give hope to the people of Europe. And this hope can't come from national budgets, so it's up to all of us in Europe. We need ourselves to take responsibility for providing hope for the people of Europe, and that hope is a European budget, own resources. Guy is right. Help the European Investment Bank to have a multiplier effect. Let's have a Green New Deal and transform the European economy, creating jobs as we do so. And the ESB can help relaunch our economy, and then with the European budget we can start repaying the money needed to prime that pump that the EIB gave us. If we say no, wait and see, everything will be fine, the neoliberal economy has led us to the edge of the precipice. We should say this quite clearly to all governments. If we don't change the way our economies work, we'll all go over that precipice. And let me finish with a very simple point. There is a danger for our economies. The danger is not just a danger to our economies, it's a danger to democracy. If people don't believe that they are in charge and that we're not in charge of the situation overall, then it's not a question of a revolution saving all of us, it's a question of us all being led into a terrible, tragic mistake. What we need to do as Democrats is prove to people today, to show that we can rebalance European policy, we can put a European budget together and put Europe at the heart of the transformations that are necessary for the peoples of Europe to say, ah yes, we were right 60 years ago to create this European Union. Let's restate that reason, and the future will belong to us. Otherwise it'll belong to the markets, and they won't be interested in hearing the voices of the people of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cohn-Bendit. For the European Conservatives, Mr. Callanan, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Schuman, Monnet and